We're here at the 2025 Tour de France with Team Visma-Lease bike. Let's go check out some of their bikes. But first, a big thanks to Abus for sponsoring this section of the video. Abus offers high quality and attractive cycling helmets designed for racing, off-road, the city commute and the family bike ride, as well as a whole range of bike locks and security devices. Hit the link below to find out more. Alright, so we turned up at Visma-Lease bike hoping to see a new S5, and hell, what have we got? We've got a new R5 instead. Absolutely incredible. So this bike belongs to Matteo Jorgenson, and the team tells me that this bike has been designed specifically to hit 6.8 kilos in any size, absolutely ready to ride, including bottle cages, pedals and computer mount, bike computer, everything you need. Now obviously it looks pretty similar overall, but the Cervélo engineers have told me that basically every tube on this bike has been changed or modified in some small way just to save off those final extra grams. So for example, the Cervélo aerofoil tube shapes are slightly slimmer overall. You can see this head tube isn't quite as deep as before, and the little interfacing point between the fork and the down tube has also been refined. Over here on the fork, which you can't see from there, but we'll cut in some footage, the brake mount, now the bolts go through directly through the front of the fork, straight through to the brake at the back, which just saves a little bit of weight, apparently 30 grams, by not needing aluminium inserts in the fork that the bolts thread into. At the rear of the bike, you can see those pencil-thin seat stays. Now, the UCI rules dictate that you have to have 10mm seat stays. Now, Cervélo says that these seat stays are actually produced to be under that, but with paint, just hit the UCI rules of 10mm. And apparently there's a little bit of tolerance there, so if they can, they go even narrower just to eke out that extra bit of compliance and weight saved. We've also got a brand new seat post at the back. It still retains that kind of D aero shape, and obviously there's plenty of it exposed on this bike, which just helps with comfort. But apparently Cervélo has moved the top tube up just a little bit because some of the riders felt that the old model was just a little bit too flexible at the rear with lots of seat posts exposed. Now up front we also have a new one-piece cockpit with a super light design, and what's really interesting about this is they've kind of taken away some of the hardware around the bolts. There are of course titanium bolts in there, but there's just a little bit of raw carbon and the bolts thread directly on top of that, so there's no like aluminium insert to add weight. Apparently it is also more aerodynamic than the old two-piece setup, saving around 2 watts at a kind of unspecified speed, but we imagine it's around 45 kph. On this specific bike it's got a tiny little Garmin Edge computer rather than a big 1040, which is obviously going to help save a little bit of weight. So on this bike, Jorgenson's running the Reserve 42-49 wheels. So that's a pretty standard mid-depth all-around riding wheel set, not a kind of super light wheel set designed just for the mountain days, so that's kind of interesting. And they are the Vittoria Corsa Pro wide tyres, which come in at 29C, and we'll measure those for you in just a minute. So it's not a kind of super light climbing wheel setup, so it'd be really interesting to see if this size 56 or maybe a 58 does indeed come in at 6.8 kilos, as Cervélo is so keen to say it does. So in terms of group set, of course, Visma-Lease bike are running the latest SRAM Red Access, which was the lightest road bike group set available until Campagnolo launched Super Record 13 recently. Jorgenson is running 54-41 tooth chainrings with what looks like a 10-36 cassette out back. Now, of course, if the UCI's trial gearing restriction regulations do come into effect after the trial this summer, won't be able to run that next year, but still legal for the time being, so of course he is going to run it at this year's tour. He also has his Wahoo Speedplay Aero pedals there. There's a Pro logo saddle up top, and of course Tax bottle cages from their sponsor Garmin. So last few little details, it's also got a SRAM UDH hanger out of the rear to give it compatibility with any future UDH group sets. Visma-Lease bike are, like last year, also running waxed chains on their drivetrains. And Cervélo tells me that this bike has had an updated fit geometry to now be much closer, if not identical, to the S5, so that when the riders are transferring between it, it's a little bit of a more seamless transition. And what's really interesting is it's such a pro bike. It's the first bike we've seen at this year's tour, and obviously has a massive stem, looks about 13 or 14 centimeters, and what looks like a pretty narrow handlebar. So let's measure that right now. All right, so in terms of handlebar width, it looks like we've got roughly around a 37 centimeter wide handlebar, and what looks like maybe could be a 150 mil stem. That's obviously extremely long. Now Jorgenson is a tall rider, but this isn't a massive bike, but a 140, 150 mil stem paired with a fairly narrow handlebar. Let's just check those measurements in between the hoods, because we know the UCI isn't going to like this for next year. Maybe this might just be legal next year because it's measuring around 32 centimeters in between the hoods. So let's weigh it. Now normally, to be fair, we would take the bottles off, but so confident are Cervélo that we're going to weigh it with the bottles on. So let's see. It's taking forever to settle. Oh my God. There you go. So this one's come in at 7 and 30 grams. So not quite 6.8 kilos, but I think once you take those bottles out, it's going to be pretty much bang on. And obviously this isn't the smallest bike here, so in the even smaller sizes, it will of course be even lighter. One little interesting detail that I've just noticed whilst we've been taking our pictures is that Jorgenson is on 165mm cranks. Now that has been a clear trend in the pro peloton of recent years, but obviously Matteo Jorgenson's not a small rider, so 165mm is pretty short. So there you have it, Matteo Jorgenson's brand new Cervélo R5 at the 2025 Tour de France. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and stay tuned for more Tour content in the coming days.